Welcome to the Scott Mann Podcast, where we connect like our lives depend on it. What's going on, teammates? Welcome to the Scott Mann Podcast. The title for today's episode is The Power of Purpose. It is a solo episode. Again, the whole purpose of these solo episodes is to take some time, like I used to do for those of you that listened, when I would do my driveway episodes and it was all audio, and I would just walk up and down the driveway and talk to you. And I just thought those were, and I think some of you thought those were really cool conversations. It was a chance for me to kind of riff on a 30-year body of work around human connection and storytelling within context that was typically going on in my life or maybe your life or both. And I don't want to lose that. I love the way that we've done the Scott Mann Podcast now. I love the way that we are bringing guests in and really focusing on the through line of human connection as we do that. What we've done with this space, what my bride has done with this space. However, I don't want to lose the ability. Frankly, I don't want to lose my voice. And by that, I mean my actual voice, my agency, my point of view to, stand on this platform and talk about things that I care about, whether they're contrarian or not. I really don't care. If they matter to me, I feel like there's a universality to them, just like with you. And so that's what today is. And what I want to talk about today is the power of purpose. When nobody's coming to save you, I talk a lot about humans being meaning-seeking creatures. We are the most meaning-seeking, meaning-assigning creatures on the planet. Simon Sinek is absolutely right. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The brain has a mandate, according to Dr. Kendall Haven, to make sense of the world. And that makes sense mandate is what drives us. We're constantly seeking and assigning meaning to everything that we do. And if you think about that, that is not just true for you. That's true for your employee. That's true for your clients, your kids, your spouse. We're all just trying to make sense of things. And purpose is at the heart of that. Meaning, purpose. And so as leaders, we have to, as parents, we have to pay attention to purpose and the power of it like never before, particularly now that we live in this time of churn, right? Those unprecedented social conditions, novel set of social conditions that we've begun to face in the last few years, where the volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, the crowdedness, the ambiguity of the arena where you live, work, and play, the distraction, disengagement, disconnection, and distrust and division of the human terrain that occupy that arena, and then the internal resistance, as Stephen Pressfield calls it, the self-sabotage that you feel when that human operating system is under tension. That primal, well-dressed Neanderthal, some more than others, Colin excluded, where we're more Neanderthals than we are modern. It's just the reality. 80% of our humanity is below the surface. So all of those things conspire to press on us, to put us under pressure and tension. And that makes it harder to lead. It makes it harder to influence. It makes it harder to move forward. And that's why I'm so adamant about getting below that waterline, if it was an iceberg, and really tapping into the primal self and the meaning-seeking, emotional, social storytellers who struggle. So that meaning-seeking, meaning-assigning creature is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the power of purpose. And I learned it really a lot of different ways, certainly from my father and my mom, but it was in the military where I was really introduced to the formality of purpose. If you look at mission statements, task and purpose, every mission statement has that at a minimum, what and why. I've heard really great mentors, NCOs, tell me when I was young that the American warrior will follow you anywhere as long as they know the answer to one question: why? I've seen Afghan village elders who would be loath to support anything we were doing or me, but then when they knew why we were doing it, they would be way more willing to do it. When Jim Gant showed Malik Noor Afzal the footage from the attacks on the World Trade Center years ago, when he was just trying to get some kind of rapport with him, and this is a Momon tribe in Afghanistan that had shown no love of any coalition forces. He showed him the raw footage of the attacks on the towers. And when he did that, it shifted everything. Malik Noor Afzal said, I know why you're here now. I understand. And that initial report opened up a whole range of engagements that ultimately led to a level of social capital that was so deep that Osama bin Laden wrote about it as one of the greatest threats he was facing in eastern Afghanistan, this relationship between Jim and Malik Noor Afzal. It started with purpose. It started with understanding another person's why. And I know that's an extreme example, but I call it out because I want to kind of go outside industry here and just show you that regardless of what it is, your why, your purpose is extremely important for a range of reasons, but just know that for starters, the brain has a mandate to make sense of the world. So if we can't make sense of things, we really can't execute. And by the way, the people that we want to follow us and buy from us and invest in us, they won't. As Donald Miller says, if you confuse, you lose. Why? Because humans follow clarity. Your kids follow parents who are clear. Your associates follow employers who are clear. And honestly, you will follow through on your own execution if you're clear, right? I mean, if you're ambiguous and not certain or casual about whatever it is that you're doing, there's a really good chance you won't follow through on it. So hopefully that establishes, at least on the left hemisphere of the brain, the science side, why purpose is so important and why the power of purpose is so real. People follow leaders who are clear on their why. So but that's not easy, is it? I mean, it's easy to say, it's easy to give a TED talk on, I suppose, perhaps even write a book on it, but it's not necessarily easy to do, is it? I do think that Simon Sinek makes a good case for this in that because it is so tied to emotion and the limbic part of the brain that we don't even really have a language for, why in many cases. If your spouse says to you, and you all are in love, and of course, why do you love me? I don't know. It's hard to find the words. Why often evokes a sense in us where we struggle to find language for it. It doesn't mean that the meaning isn't there. It's just intrinsically within us that it's so deep that there may not even be grammar for it. But that's powerful, but we got to work to uncover that and find that and then put that into the world, because if we can, the return on investment with that is an emotional and mental coupling that's unmatched. And I want to talk about that in practical terms with you right now. Again, this is going to be a shorter one, but I think it's important that we unpack this a little bit, because at the heart of everything is purpose. And so I just thought I would offer 3 things today that might help with that, right, in your life. See if you locate any yourself in any of them. The first one is an alignment of your personal story, an alignment with your personal story. And you might think, okay, well, I don't really get that. I mean, but here's the thing is that humans, the human brain has a mandate to make sense of the world. Just follow my thought trail here. The human brain has a mandate to make sense of the world. Storytelling is a sense-making tool. The brain is a metaphorical pattern-matching organ. In other words, it uses story to make sense of things. And Dr. Kendall Haven has even measured brain activity, and what he's found is that it does not process information through data and PowerPoint and spreadsheets. It tells itself a story. And, we live our lives in moments, and our brain is constantly, sitting there in that dark liquid, creating stories, metaphors, matching patterns about what is happening in real time to something else. And so these stories create new patterns. They create visions, imagery of what could be based on what has been, what our lived experiences have been. And as a result of that, when these moments happen, you're the protagonist in those stories in your own brain. You see what I mean? The brain is living out the hero's journey. The hero hears a call. reluctantly answers the call or even refuses it, ultimately gets that tap on the shoulder, maybe meets a guide along the way, goes on a journey, ends up in the belly of the whale, as Stephen Pressfield says, fighting struggles outside, inside, maybe both, and then eventually overcomes those struggles and returns home to the home shore with a gift for the people, being resolution, something how they've changed or what they've learned. That ancient construct of story is within us. It's you live it every day. People tell me they don't have a story. I'm like, no, you got like millions of stories for those lived moments, and our life happens in moments, and our stories are built around those moments, and our brain does that. The question is, can we harvest those stories? Can we birth those stories into the world? Because if we can, what I've seen happen in the most extreme cases, what I've seen happen in the deepest trauma, guilt, grief, is that we start to make sense of things that don't make sense. Remember, the brain has a mandate to make sense of things, and storytelling is a sense-making tool. So as you're looking for purpose in your life, as you're trying to get clear on your purpose, and Oxford Analytica did a study of leaders throughout history that moved people to action, from Alexander the Great to Martin Luther King to, John F. Kennedy, and what they found was that the two things always in play were vision or purpose and a story, a personal story to convey that vision. And so the stories that you mine for yourself that explain or open up your purpose and help us understand your purpose, that is a powerful strategic vehicle. And even, here's the thing, and I've been doing this for 12 years in the civilian world, over and over again, with people from all walks of life, all industries, all disciplines, who are very reluctant, many of them in the beginning, who've been scuffed up. But when we do this purpose work and we start to build backstories around pivotal moments in one's life, or we think about the tracks that we want to leave in this world after we're gone, regardless of the prompt, what I found is, and what they found was, a sense of themselves that they did not have before. Why? Because the brain has a mandate to make sense of the world. And what's happening in the time of churn, it's just being clouded. It's just being buried upon. And you know what I'm talking about. So when we're able to unpack that and make sense of things, we get a sense of ourselves. And here's where I think what Donald Miller says is so wise, is when we have a sense of ourselves, other people get a sense of themselves. It creates a level of psychological safety and deep human connection and shared future that Daniel Coyle says is essential for a high-performing collective to have. So the work to get into your backstory actually is opening up an alignment between your body, your instrument, and that narrative and that lived experience in your brain. I've seen it so many times. Holly Higgins and others that I've worked with, Gold Star Mom, story coach, she'll tell you the same thing. It is literally a shift, a clicking into space, into place when a war veteran or a first responder moves through their story and explores the grief and the trauma from a place of service. And they make sense of it through their story exploration. And all of a sudden now, what was this deep grief or pain or scar, as I call it, is now a beautiful story that is able to be put into the world with generosity, the generosity of scars. And even if you don't ever do that, even if you just do the work to unpack your story or a backstory or pivotal moment story, one or many, you start to get a relationship with yourself. Now, it's an oral story process. It's not just writing it. It's an oral story process that I think needs to happen. It's been happening for 70,000 years. But if you do it, I believe there is a real, not just catharsis, but I think a transformational thing that happens around alignment. And when we become aligned, then I think we are available to the other party. We are more present. We are more in our body. We are embodied. We're not in our head. And we're able to lead through this time of churn. That's why I always put the purpose exercises at the first of my events. Colin, would you agree? You went through this. The purpose stuff's critical, right? Yep. Yeah, it's critical. I watched Colin do this, and he suffered great loss in his life at a young age. And we started with purpose, and it unpacks it. It makes sense of the things that don't make sense. So my hope for you, just did it recently in a story workshop 2 days ago at the filming of this, after the filming of this. A gentleman named Ken, I don't think he'll mind me using his first name, business owner, serial entrepreneur, very successful man, but he's had a rough childhood, and then a series of business, not failings, but just getting kicked in the nuts and then having to get back up. And he'd never told his story from the stage ever. He came to this workshop. He'd never spoken from the stage, I don't think, maybe one time. But yet when he was done, he was like, this has been life-changing for me. And I asked him why. And he said, because I understand me so much better now. I have a sense of myself. And I'm like, there it is. And so just know that alignment with your personal story is a really important thing. If you're going to leverage the power of purpose. Number two, I think it's really important to talk about what you're building once you figure out what that purpose is. Bo Eason, I talk about this dude all the time. He is a brother from another mother, but that guy has had such an impact on me. His instincts are just astounding. He's a former pro football player turned playwright, turned actor, turned speaker, turned just great leader and friend. And one of the things that he would always talk about is talk about what you're building. Americans in particular, Westerns more generally, love to build things, and we love to help people build things. And when you figure out what that purpose is, because I guarantee it's going to be bigger than you, self-actualization is at the top of Maslow's pyramid for a reason. And once those basic physiological needs of food and shelter and security are met, we tend to gravitate towards, as Viktor Frankl says, man's search for meaning. What the hell was I saying, Colin? Bo. Oh, yeah. Bo would always talk about what you're building. And the way he would say it is when you figure that purpose out and you talk about it in your story, this is what I'm building. Help me build it. And you know what? He's spot on right. I did that with Last Out. I've done that with our new one-person show, Operation Pineapple Express. I've done that with Pineapple Express, the actual movement to get Afghans out. And so many other things in our nonprofit work and for-profit this is what I'm building. Help me build it. And so I think actually, and it doesn't have to be a nonprofit or advocacy thing. I'm just talking about if you're building something that's bigger than yourself, if that's what your purpose is, and you get to where you can articulate it through narrative, if you're looking for ways to land that chopper at the end, it doesn't have to be from the stage. It can just be in a conversation. This is what I'm building. Will you help me build it? Or help me build it? If you're talking to your people at an all hands, if you're brand new on board and you're talking about your leadership philosophy, if you're talking to your kids about where you're going as a family, I think it's just a powerful, powerful thing to talk about. Once you understand your purpose fundamentally and you have a sense of it, talk about it as what you're building. Help me build it. And again, we love to help people build things, particularly if it's not just about them, if it's not self-indulgent. And the last one, this one is probably my favorite, and because it's based on my dad, which is skid the car in sideways, right? What do I mean by that? There's different ways. There's a poem or saying out there from someone. Maybe we'll find it. Colin, maybe we can find that poem and put it in the show notes. But he's talking about how he's going to live his life, and at the end of it, he's just going to skid the car in sideways. And that metaphor, the brain's a metaphorical pattern matching organ. So the brain loves metaphor, and my brain loves that metaphor. I love that metaphor of skidding the car in sideways. Why? Because that's how my dad has lived his life. My hero, man, the guy that I love so much, that has let me see the world from his shoulders since I was a little boy. With just complete generosity, and has lived his life full out. This Appalachian kid with no money that never should have made it to college, and ended up being one of the top 3 firefighters, wildland firefighters in the nation, that has helped lead the restoration of an American chestnut tree, that gave a TED Talk at 73 years old after a bout with cancer, that fought 2 more bouts with cancer, a stroke, and still now is helping indigenous communities reconnect with the chestnut tree at 80 years old. 80 years old, has endured a horrific treatment of cancer just recently, and is just fighting with everything he has to stay in the game, and he's not done. He'll tell you he's not done, and he clings to that purpose, and it's so hard for him. And I know for many of you watching this, you probably are dealing with that, or you have parents or loved ones who are there, they're fighting so hard to just cling to that purpose. And physically, their bodies are betraying them, or an illness is betraying them. But what more generous thing can we do in our lives than honor our own purpose if we don't have those debilitating obstacles? How can we even remotely be casual about our purpose when there are people out there who would give anything to be able to just pursue their purpose with an open runway? And maybe I tend to think that the friends that I lost in combat and the friends that I've lost after I came home from combat, who were still in the war in their minds and didn't win, I have to honor that purpose for them too. I mean, because they're not here and I am here, and I have the opportunity to run full out. And I do. People think I'm fucking crazy. Right, Colin?
Just a bit.
And maybe I am. Maybe I am. I've got way too much on the plate. I know I do. Trying to, put the play up at the same time that we're rolling out new storytelling products and traveling the country speaking and still touring with Last Out, not in it anymore, but we're still doing it. It's a lot. It's too much probably, but all I can think of is my old man and the way he's skidding that car in sideways, and he's still making an impact, and I think about that last breath that my father-in-law, Dee, took when he left this world. Monty and I were in there with the rest of her family as he was slipping away from us after a brain aneurysm. And we knew it was time, it was his final moments. And I was listening to his breathing, and his breaths were not labored. They were deep, long, slow breaths. And it occurred to me that on the inhale, he was taking in all of the wonderful experiences and relationships that he had had in his life. And then he would exhale, and it would just seem to last forever. And you could just feel him letting go, because he had skidded that car in sideways. And those last few breaths, that was his return on investment. And for me, that's what I choose to believe. And that's how I'm going to go on my run. And so what I hope that you'll consider in this aspects of the power of purpose is to skid that car in sideways, to find the things that are productive and impactful, but also scare you. And don't be afraid to push the envelope, because the world needs it. The world needs what you've got, as Stephen Pressfield says. So I hope this has been helpful. I appreciate the time with you. I find a lot of clarity in this time with you. And, the world is hurting right now. The country's hurting. And we need leaders who understand the power of purpose, not just in themselves, but in the people they serve, our kids, our associates, our clients. And we hold space, right, for those individuals to get clear on their purpose. But I do not believe it can be done. I do not believe it can be done unless you're clear on yours. If you don't have a sense of yourself, how can the people around you have a sense of themselves? It's tough, because they're caught up in that churn too. But if you can just do the work, the deep, quiet work, those things that allow you to leverage that power of purpose, alignment of your personal story, talking about what you're building, and skidding that car in sideways, hanging on to that purpose until you take that last deep breath and let go. Thanks for what you do, and I'll see you on the rooftop.